Hello and welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout. Today I'm joined by David to look at the best captaincy options for Game Week 19, and we will also discuss the latest injury and lineup news from the press conferences so far. David, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, thanks. I'm doing better than I thought I would be after the captain run officially finally came to an end in Game Week 18, courtesy of one Leroy Sané. And I know that a lot of people tend to kind of be a bit upset if a particular player lets them down, but I don't feel too upset with Leroy Sané. I don't feel like my relationship with him is soured in any way, because he was rather unlucky not to score against Crystal Palace. He had 5 goal attempts in that game. No player had more than that hit the post, and nobody saw that result coming. No. So, I'm not beating myself up too much. And just want to say to anyone on social media who is trying to beat me up too much, these things happen. I'm not magic. We finally realised I am an actual fact human.
Yes, you are not a conjurer. You're just a normal man, a normal average man playing a game, but doing very well at the game. But it was a great.
Yeah, I'm not doing too badly.
It's been a great run. But all good things have to come to an end.
Exactly.
Now we're going to start off with a player you perhaps should have captained if you were indeed magic. And so we're going to be having a look at Liverpool. So I think this week the captaincy, Salah and Kane did so well, and they've got such good fixtures. So I think a lot of the talk is, for those that own both of them, is which do they captain. So let's have a look at Liverpool first, and we'll also find out if there's any team news as well. So what do we think about Liverpool options? They've got a great fixture, a home fixture against Newcastle, and Klopp's already been talking a bit about Salah in his press conference as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we all just kind of have to accept that Mohamed Salah is back. He is the Mohamed Salah of last season that we knew and came to love, and basically captained every week, or should have captained every week. I think he's back, and I think he's here to stay. Klopp obviously has been talking about that in his press conference that happened this morning, Christmas Eve. Mm-hmm. He's basically said that took him a little bit of time to kind of get used to this new role, because he is basically playing as a centre forward now. Mm-hmm. Not like a Harry Kane type centre forward, or Harry Kane of old centre forward. He's obviously involved in the more creative side of things, and he's not a winger anymore, or that's not how they're using him. So it took a little bit of time to get used to that. He also talked this morning a little bit about how he thinks that he was still just a bit sort of hungover from the injury that he had in the Champions League final, and because he kind of rushed himself to the World, because Egypt don't qualify for the World Cup very often. So the suggestion was he went there too soon, wasn't quite ready. That probably didn't really help him. So all these sort of factors that kind of meant that at the start of the season he quite wasn't at his best, but they're all past now. And as we can see from what he's done in the last couple of game weeks, I mean, obviously 21 points away at Bournemouth, big haul, 12 points away against Wolves, against a defence that we thought was quite good. We didn't really expect Salah to get double figures in that game. But when you look at his underlying data, it's so hard to argue against a captaincy for him this week. So in the last 4 game weeks, he's had 13 shots. He's had 10 in the box, 8 of which have been on target. And basically only one player has had more shots on target than him in the last 4 game weeks, and that's Marcus Rashford. So He's in a really strong position for goal threat, but at the same time, he's in a great position for creativity as well. So he's created 11 chances in the last 4 game weeks, which there's only 3 players have had more than that as well. So he's in a situation where he's at the top end for creativity and for goal threat. Mm-hmm. So he just looks, again, the complete package. And this Newcastle game is obviously a great fixture for him. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think that maybe Newcastle will go and sit all their players behind the ball, and it would be quite tight. But, an early goal and the floodgates will open. Indeed. Newcastle have actually been allowing a lot of chances, as I'm sure you'll perhaps maybe mention in a second, Joe. So it's a good one to look at. And also, anyone worried about rotation, I was worried about rotation, seeing him play the whole game against Wolves. But a break of 5 days, and the fact that Firmino and Mane aren't really cutting it, it's quite hard for Klopp to bench him. So I think this is a really, really strong opportunity to captain Salah. Yeah,
no, agree with all those points. And it's that extra, I mean, they played on Friday as well. So he's got, 2-3 days, more than some of the other options that we're going to discuss. So he's had that extra rest. And also Klopp's comments there, talking about him adapting to the different position, how impressive he is. These are not the comments you make about a player before you bench him. If he was going to be benching him, he'd probably be talking about, we need to freshen up the front line. We need to, make sure we're focusing on all 3 games. It's these types of hints there. You never know. He may still be benched. But the indications from that press conference don't sound like, and he sounds like he looks in good form. It's Mane and Firmino that look like they need a rest. So I think one of them at least will be rested. But having a look at Newcastle, you mentioned about Newcastle. Now, I've had a lot of people on social media been saying, "Hey, have a look. You know, Newcastle's away stats are great. You know, they will be a force to be reckoned with on the road." Well, you've already said that Salah is a force to be reckoned with there, but actually Newcastle aren't that great away. I don't know what people are looking at really. So they've had one of the easiest set of away games. They've actually only really had 2 tough road trips. That's Manchester United in game week 8. They conceded 3 then. And then game week 4 against City, they conceded twice. So when they have come up against so-called tougher opposition, they've been found wanting, and they've conceded more than 1 on both of those occasions there. Also, as you mentioned as well, they've been really, really lucky not to concede more against these weaker teams as well. So their last 4 away matches, they've shipped 45 shots in the box. That's the 3rd worst by that measure. So just 2 goals conceded over that time. So the stats and that history against the top sides, to me, suggest that they're actually going to concede quite heavily, or they have the potential to concede quite heavily.
Well, I think what people have been looking at is just the raw data of how many goals they've conceded, because it's only 7 away from home. And basically only Liverpool and Man City have conceded fewer than that. But of course, you know, the away table is always, the home and away table is always a bit tricky, especially when Spurs, for example, their home stadium's been all kind of, you know, they've played a lot of away games near the start of the season. So it's all skew with. You know, you've got some teams that have played 8 games, some played 10, some played 9, some played 11. Newcastle have played 8 games, so obviously it's going to be lower anyway. But then, of course, as you mentioned there, you always have to go deeper. You can't just look at they've conceded this many goals. You have to go and look at whether or not they were fortunate or unfortunate to be in that situation. And as you've mentioned, they look like they could be in for a pasting, especially against Salah when he's at his best. A
better measure for those who have access to the members area is to look at last 4s of things, last 4 home, last 4 away. In this case, we're looking at last 4 away, because then you're comparing like for like. You're comparing them against other teams' last 4 as well, rather than teams that have maybe had 11 away games rather than 8 or something like that as well. So they're up there. Burnley, Cardiff, Newcastle are the worst by a margin there in terms of away at the moment. They're the kind of whipping boys, and Newcastle's last 4, so they're conceding that amount of shots, and their last 4 against Huddersfield, Everton, Burnley, and Southampton. So these are not top sides. No disrespect to them. Now Liverpool are a top side, and Salah is a top attacker. So agree with what you say there. Everything to me points to Salah, except Harry Kane came along. I did say on the Breakfast Club, what does Harry Kane have to to give him the armband against Bournemouth at home, game week 19, a hat trick back? Well, he was just shy of a hat trick by 1 point. Because 2 goals and an assist. So what do we think about Spurs options, Kane and Son, who was incredible there? And also, do we have any team news there? So with those 2 players, obviously they played their way back into the captain conversation, because they were just devastating against Everton. It's a tricky one. It's annoying because it feels like 2 game weeks ago I had to choose between the 2 of them, and it just kind of I got the decision wrong too many times last season, because it was between Kane and Salah a lot of the time. So I hate having to make this call. And my hope is that whichever one I go for, it doesn't matter. They'll both bag at least 2 goals, something like that. Because I do think that's plausible with the form that Kane is in individually. I think that the performance against Everton kind of proves that the Burnley game was a bit of a blip and was largely affected by the Champions League more than anything else, because there's provable data to suggest that they always have a bit of a blip after they played in Champions League. So, they were kind of back to what we were expecting from them. Son subbed early as well, so every chance that he could, that he could start again. And he's had 6 shots on target last 4, which is more than Kane. Obviously, he plays slightly more minutes, but that's still quite exciting. That he's always a fantastic option to think about. A great little differential. On the subject of team news, Dele Alli is obviously a doubt for the game, and it does sound as if the reason that he was brought off was kind of precautionary, which makes sense at this time of year. We've seen that with a lot of substitutions that were made in game week 18 actually. So another one was Monreal, for example. I think in any other game week you see a guy go down in the first half and maybe tries to play on for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, but no. Emery took him straight off and said, look, we're not taking any risks. So that's just another example of where
right now managers just are not taking risks with people.
Okay.
So that could play into the hands of Son, because if Dele Alli's not involved, because he's a doubt, then that just maybe just allows Son, the kind of a go at having another start. So, yeah. The only other thing to consider, of course, is Bournemouth's defensive statistics, which annoyingly, it's not quite as bad as it was.
No, they're not. They're no longer whipping boys.
No. They've managed to kind of creep up to about mid-table with 33 goal attempts in the box conceded. That's that's fewer than Fulham. That's fewer than Palace. You got Man United are below them, and basically Burnley, Watford, Cardiff are the bottom three for that now, and which is frustrating, yes, but I am just kind of hoping. Because obviously I have Kane, and lots of other people have Kane, so you still want him to get a good score even if you don't captain him. I'm kind of hoping that the reason that's so low is because they were at home against Brighton in game week 18, which Brighton have just been they're a different animal away from home. I don't really even think that Houghton is that bothered about away points, because they seem to. It's a tried and tested method with them of just throw all your resources into winning your home matches and just see what you can pick up away from home.
Yeah.
And it was experimental formation from Brighton as well. So Murray was benched, which actually is starting to become quite commonplace to happen for Brighton when they're away, because he doesn't do much and he's quite old and they need to rotate his minutes. But basically they had Andoni up front on his own. They had Locadia out on the left wing. They tried to sit deep with Davy Proper as a holding midfielder and basically went for a 4-1-4-1 instead of the usual 4-4-1-1, which is a bit more attacking. So they the fact that Bournemouth didn't concede too many shots, to me, is obviously down to the fact that Brighton weren't really going for it in the same way that some
of course over that period they had Liverpool, who absolutely hammered them as well. And I think all the teams above them have all had their mixture of on paper easy and hard times. So I think that's quite good. The other thing, if we're comparing Liverpool as an attacking unit to Spurs, and Spurs were pretty incredible against Everton, really. But over the last four, Spurs have actually only had around half the shots that Liverpool have had over the last four home games, that is. So I think it's 92 shots we're looking at for Liverpool at home last four, and for Spurs it's around 50. So that shows that Spurs are very attacking, but Liverpool really, really attacking. So I think that's that's telling really in terms of if people are looking for those kind of fine details to compare Salah and Kane as well. Just you mentioned the team news there from Spurs as well. Also Liverpool as well. How are they? Just to go back to Liverpool, Alexander Arnold, for example, could be back. Is that right?
It could be. Basically, Klopp said this morning that he's back in full training, and we will see whether or not he'll play. So there's a chance. We've obviously seen pictures of him training as well with the main group. So it looks good. It's just when Klopp says we will see. I mean that's all we could say. Anything could happen really. I mean with the games coming in quick succession, and obviously they've got Arsenal and Man City coming up afterwards. And would you really expect a Liverpool defender to have much to do at home against Newcastle? Not really. So he could probably get away with using Klein there again and keep Trent fresh for Arsenal, Man City. Of course, that's just my opinion. All we can really tell you as a fact is that Klopp has said he's in contention. Yeah. So we'll have to see.
No, I mean, I think we haven't mentioned Son really compared to Kane there, but I mean, I think we just have to accept that if Son is on the starting lineup, then he's probably going to get us points. But I don't suppose there's that question mark there, but I think there's question marks over everyone. You just got to go with the player that you think can score, and that early subbing. I think that Son owners already very happy should also be happy about that as well. I think that indicates that he could start. Another team that had a great game week 18 was Manchester United. First game for Solskjaer. A whole bunch of goals there against Cardiff. They look great. Lots of options suddenly. What do we think about Manchester United's assets there? So lots of people suddenly on the radar. Lots of people to consider for the captaincy as well.
Obviously that big win against Cardiff has got a lot of people all of a sudden considering Man United if they weren't before. I think I'm still a little bit cautious. I know that I'm not going to speak for everyone when I say that. Just simply because I think a big win against Cardiff I kind of expected, not a 5-1 by any means, but I did expect a comfortable win because I actually, to be honest, I thought even under Mourinho they'd win there by 3 or 4 goals. But of course, yeah, looking at the options, there are some good ones. I think my personal favourite is probably Pogba, just simply because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer just seems an absolutely massive fan of him. Basically, when he was asked in the post-match press conference if it was an easy decision to just throw him straight back into the side after a few games out, he just gave a simple one-word answer of yes. And then he obviously went on and gave a bit more detail when the journalists asked him for more sort of reasons why. He's a quality player, he brings X, Y, Z, the usual stuff a manager says when they're praising a player. So obviously he's a very big fan of him, and the fact that he hasn't played a lot of games actually probably plays into his hands for this period, because it probably means he can start them all. And I don't really see any competition for a place for him, because of if you look at what he does and what he does in that team, there's very few other people in the midfield who can do that. Like Fellaini can't, Matic can't, Herrera can't. Maybe Mata can, but he's not as mobile. And obviously, people like Lingard, Martial, and Rashford look very exciting. But of course, Lukaku's on this compassionate leave and could be back at some point. We don't know exactly when. So there's basically just kind of more competition for places from those other players. And of course, yes, Lingard took that penalty, but I still think that Pogba's probably on them long term.
Yeah.
So, Pogba looks like the best option for me. The only thing to say about if you're going to captain a Man United player for this game, I will always highlight that Huddersfield are not as defensively porous as you think they are. In the last 4 game weeks, the only 2 teams that have allowed fewer shots in the box than Huddersfield are Arsenal and Liverpool. So it always kind of you always have to consider that, I suppose, Huddersfield don't always look like a team that are going to get thrashed. That's just maybe one way.
That's true. They haven't conceded that many shots in the box as well. But if you look at big chances conceded over the last 4 game weeks, so this is the kind of conceding kind of very high quality chances that could be goals. They're joint worst alongside Everton, and we've seen how much Everton have conceded. Now I think with Moy out, that takes away a lot of their creativity.
Yeah, mobility in midfield goes away.
So that means they're spending less time going forward. And what happens then? They're going to have to spend more time defending, and of course, if Manchester United are on fire, so I think the indication
they will be under the cosh in that game.
Yeah, I think Huddersfield could be there for the taking if those big chances deemed by Opta are indeed big chances. I think for this game week, I think Martial or Lingard may be the best options. I think long term though, Pogba would be my pick. The reason is just looking at the underlying stats. Martial created 5 chances there, only 1 goal attempt, but 5 chances. That's a lot, that indicates there's points there. He's obviously in midfield there. Lingard's with 3 shots, and Rashford with 4 shots. So, and with Lukaku's likely to be out for this game week, so we think that's they look good. Pogba though was pretty good really. A couple of chances created, 3 goal attempts, but none in the box as well. So he's shooting from range there. But I know exactly what you mean. I've actually got Pogba in already, so I don't have to think about it over Christmas. He's one of my type of players. I like what Solskjaer's saying about him. I think he's just going to be involved, and I think he's going to get those assist points and the odd goal, and of course penalty as well. So yeah, I agree with you there. I think Pogba, but perhaps not for the captaincy. I think once again we go back to the other ones: Salah, Kane, Son, even. Now a team that did absolutely awful. Surprise, as we mentioned there, our friend Sane. What I put up on the screen here is all the transfers out for Man City since Palace beat them. Now Sterling has been transferred out so far by just since then really 124,000 people.
Wow.
Sane, 63,000 people have had enough of him. This is what people, prior to the last game week, people were getting rid of Salah and Kane, and look how that turned out. Son even. So, I don't think it's going to work out very well for these people who've got rid of him. So they've got a great, I think, quite an okay fixture. Not, I wouldn't say great fixture, but an away game against Leicester. What do we think about City assets for the armband? And also, do we have any team news?
Well, to answer one of those questions, no, we don't have any team news, which is really frustrating. Which I think that is actually the main reason that I would not consider captaining any Man City players. I think Sterling, obviously, I can understand why people were frustrated with him because he really did not do very much against Crystal Palace. He's had 1 shot, and that was it, which you're kind of hoping for a lot more in a game like that. So I can understand the frustration, but I mean, just on a side issue of what you do with your premium assets, I mean, you don't sell them after a blank. You just don't do that. No. And the fact that he went off to me tells me he's going to play against Leicester.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's a concern, then I don't think it should be about Sterling. It's kind of the thing with. So then Sané is the other one that is worth talking about. Obviously, he's a man that ended my run and ended a lot of other people's runs because a lot of people obviously went the same way as me. He had 5 shots in that game, so he's looking in good form. So I guess you could consider him maybe for Leicester, but he played the whole 90 minutes. So while I don't think he'll be rested because obviously he missed a large part of the early season, there's not many other people who can do his job in that team. For this game week, I think he is more likely to be rotated than Sterling, just because Sterling's had that time off. So we'll see. I mean, and then obviously we haven't got a Pep press conference, although actually there will be some that would argue, even if we did, would that make a difference? No. Probably not, because he doesn't tend to tell us much. He does tell us when people are injured, for example. So there may be someone that we don't know about that's picked up an injury. The post-match press conference that he did, I think basically all he said was that Fernandinho wasn't fit enough, which kind of some people have kind of construed as he wasn't injured, he just
needed a break.
He wasn't match ready, he just needed a break.
Yeah.
But the way that he phrased it in English was enough for there to be a yellow flag at least anyway. So I think he'll probably play. But again, it's kind of guesswork because we haven't had a media commitment from Pep. The only other thing worth saying, I think Aguero will start because obviously Jesus played most of that game and Aguero came on as a sub. But as we've seen this year, Aguero not that great away from home. Although, of course, on his last visit to the King Power, he scored 4 goals. So, there's so many different ways to look at it. But for me, there's just the bottom line is there's too much uncertainty around the Man City team for this week. I think they'll win, but I don't know if it will be, they won't run away with it. No. So,
I mean, people have clearly seen enough. Yes, I agree. It's hasty, I think, to get rid, but captaincy-wise, I think you're right. Arsenal did well against Burnley. We've decreed Burnley to be whipping boys for a while now. They're still up there with all those shots they're conceding at close range. And as it transpired, that's exactly what happened. So Aubameyang finally delivered on his strong underlying stats. Away game to Brighton, though. Is he worth considering for the armband? And once again, as well, do we have any team news, injury news from the Arsenal camp?
Well, I think on this particular subject about Aubameyang, I think for anyone who isn't already aware, because I know we bang on about it all the time, but underlying statistics for defensive teams and what they're allowing and what they're shipping and what they're conceding outside of just the goals is such vital information, because there were people I saw who were saying, oh, well, they only conceded 1 goal against Spurs and they actually looked very good, like on the eye test. But they weren't. You go look at how many shots they were conceding, and it was still a hell of a lot. They were still at the bottom, and that's why when we did the Captain Sensible article last week, one of the conclusions that I came to was that Aubameyang can definitely go nuts in this game, and that's basically what he did. So I think just to drive that point home a little bit more, just because a team has conceded 1 goal in 2 matches, that does not mean that they are defensively sound.
Yeah,
you've always got to look deeper. So I think that's definite. That's great for some of the stuff that's in the members area. So if you haven't already got it, then have a look at it. So
and what about team news wise? Arsenal seem to be perennially having all sorts of injuries.
They seem to have a lot of problems at the back. Basically, we did actually get the handy thing was that we did actually get some team news out of Arsenal, because basically they doubled up their post-match press conference for the Burnley game with their pre-match for the Brighton. And obviously, because there'd been niggles picked up in the game, we did get a little bit of information. So with Monreal, he basically is a muscle injury, and he basically all we've got really. Emery hopes it's not too serious, but he's not confident. He's not confident that he will play. He's just not sure. He says he can probably play Koscielny, and Mustafi is closer to a return. That's all we got. But to be honest, I don't really think that so obviously that's good for team news to know. In terms of the captaincy, I don't really think it changes too much, because I think Aubameyang and Lacazette should be fine. But of course, I mean, the fact that they did a press conference on Saturday is helpful. But of course, if anyone's picked up an injury in training between then and now, then we're not going to know, basically, because there's because of the way the schedule's worked out.
I mean, Aubameyang has played, was it 270 minutes in
Yes.
7 days, so that's a
That's right.
lot. I think if he's going to be rested, it might be this one, but we've seen he can do damage off the bench as well.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, absolutely agree with that. I think Lacazette, this could be a game where he starts on his own because obviously he came off. Lacazette looked really angry that he'd been subbed as well.
Yeah.
And Emery actually talked about that. And he basically kind of said the usual line of a manager normally says, which is like, well, that's because he wants to score, and I can't argue with that. So I think Lacazette will definitely start, and I think he'll be in a mood to score.
Good.
So anyone who still has him, I'd be holding on to him for this game. As for Brighton, yeah, they're better at home than they are away. That's definitely true. Defensively, I wouldn't say they're great at home. Obviously, Dunk being out is annoying for them. But this is the game week where Duffy comes back, so that's timed kind of nicely. If obviously it's annoying for Dunk, because the other frustrating thing, as I'm sure you'll know, Joe, being a Brighton fan, is that he probably shouldn't have been sent off because his first yellow card should have been shown to Bissouma apparently. So that's just how it goes. VAR would get rid of that next season because it helps in case of mistaken identity.
Definitely.
But
I mean, I think yes, Brighton do concede a lot of shots, but having Dunk and Duffy there, particularly if they're kind of aerial type shots, they can deal with a lot of them. But when one of them's missing, Brighton concede. In fact, here's fun Brighton fact: there have been 4 matches so far when one of Dunk and Duffy have been missing. They have kept not a single clean sheet in any of those 4. Right. But they haven't conceded a hatful either. Just 1 against Liverpool, 1 against Burnley, 2 to Chelsea, and 2 to Bournemouth. So I think, judging by that, Arsenal could win 2-0 or 2-1 with a Glenn Murray. Looking at that potential.
Glenn Murray will score. I think we all agree that'll happen.
It's one of these rare things where I think I can almost confidently predict a scoreline of 2-1 based on those defensive issues there. Let's have a look at Chelsea. Now I'm putting up a picture of our predicted team news as of last night, really. So we think there might be some changes. So they have an away match to Watford. We think Giroud is going to start up front. Hazard's going to play, but moving out to the wing. Now we've got Pedro listed here, but we think it's actually probably Willian is probably likely to play instead because Pedro played more minutes there. And at the back, we think it's going to be the usual suspects. Alonso once again getting the nod. What do we think now? Hazard. Now, you mentioned about Watford. You mentioned about whipping boys. Watford are among the new whipping boys. I think Hazard could be a really good captaincy shout this week. What do we think?
Absolutely. I'm very, very nervous about not currently not owning Hazard. I haven't made my transfers yet. We'll see what happens. Very nervous if I don't have him going into this game because I do think he's going to do very well there. 39 shots in the box conceded, last 4, big chances conceded 10. So it's kind of, they are translating into chances that, as you mentioned earlier, are of a high quality. In the opinion of Opta. Hazard himself, the game they played against Leicester, I mean, there will be people out there who have rage sold Hazard after blanking against Leicester. Unfortunate game for Chelsea. Their expected goals for that game was 2.45 or something. They hit the post several times. Really, they should have won that game 2-1, 3-1, something like that. And it's just one of those rare occasions where the chances they create, which are all of a high quality, don't actually translate into goals. And when you have that result at home in a game you should win, if you're a decent team, which I think Chelsea are, and you've got a motivated manager with determined players, which I think Hazard definitely is, you go away from home against a team that are poorest defensively, then I'm expecting something like a 3-0 win. Yeah. And I do think Hazard will be involved. Obviously, it'll be a slightly different role, I think, in this game. And it's more out of necessity. I don't think that Sarri's unhappy with Hazard at false 9. There was nothing. They always ask him about it. They always ask Sarri about Hazard in that role after pretty much every game now. The local press tend to do that, and they're basically Sarri was saying no problem with the way he played, and then he said that once they conceded the goal and the game kind of changed, context. He said it didn't really matter what position Hazard was playing. We just needed to get a goal and we didn't get one. So I think he's being pushed out wide just so that basically Pedro can have a rest because he's played the whole game. Willian obviously was subbed, so I think he'll play on the other flank. And then if you're pushing Hazard out to cover Pedro, then you start Giroud, I think. Of course, other people could come in and play in those wide areas, but they're all kind of untested people. And I think that Sarri's largely shown that he likes to just kind of keep faith in that. There's only 3 players I see as likely as ever playing on the wing for Chelsea in these games, and that's Willian, Pedro and Hazard. Hazard's underlying statistics are still fantastic. Last
Yeah.
couple of game weeks, chances created very high, always having lots of shots. Not as many on target as we'd like, but that will end because there will come a time when he will find a net. With regularity again.
He was really unlucky actually against Leicester.
Yeah.
So 4 shots, 3 in the box, 2 on target. That's top striker stuff. And now Alonso owners, a lot of people are thinking of ditching Alonso. Well, I think not. 2 shots, 2 chances. I mean, what more do you want from a defender?
It's 2 weeks in a row that he's hit the woodwork. So he is. I think he's going to score, and my gut is telling me he's going to score against Watford.
Yeah, no, I think so too. We've declared them whipping boys here. Burnley 40 shots in the box conceded last fall. Watford 39.
Welcome to the club, Watford.
Cardiff 39. They've conceded 6 goals. The stats say they've been lucky. So against an angry Chelsea, that could be. They could concede quite a few. Just going back to looking at the fixture list again, any other team news that we should mention, or any other outside chances of captains? We've gone through so many captains already, but so probably not many. But any team news or any captains you think we've missed out?
We probably should just give some credit to Neil Warnock for doing a press conference on Christmas Eve. And I know that not a lot of people will have Cardiff assets. I know that. But, this is a team news video, and if we've had a press conference with some team news in it, I will give it to you.
Good.
Just because we can. So Danny Ward is basically, he's out. Mm-hmm. He's been out for a while, so no change there. Gary Madine has finally come back to training. So obviously he's a centre-forward who is obviously more of a natural centre-forward than Callum Patterson. So I don't think that's going to have an effect this week because he's only just come back. But that's just sort of something to be aware of on the horizon. I mean, he's not of a particularly high quality, but Callum Patterson's technically a midfield / defender. So, if it gets to a stage where Madine is actually fit, could maybe get some minutes at the expense of Patterson. Basically, Jazz Richards is still out as well, and Joe Bennett is a doubt rather than definitely out, having had a bit of an injury. So that's the only other official press conference that we've had on Christmas Eve. We had 3. We had Liverpool, we had Brighton, we had Cardiff. Yeah, we might get some stuff maybe later on Christmas Eve or, heaven forbid, on Christmas Day morning, but we'll try and stay on top of that.
So the message really there is keep an eye on our Twitter feed, keep checking in on Fantasy Football Scout on our team news page. We'll try and get...
don't enjoy your Christmas, keep your eyes completely fixed on our website.
Forget the presents, forget all of that business. It's all focused now on Game Week 19. For now, David, thanks so much for joining me. Have a great Christmas.
Cheers, and you as well.
And have a great game week.